Captain Sarah Chen looked out the window of her ship as it flew through space. The stars were bright and beautiful like diamonds scattered across black cloth. Her ship, the Harmony's Dream, was not a warship. It was a simple transport vessel that carried food, medicine, and supplies to human colonies in the outer parts of the galaxy. Sarah had been doing this job for 10 years. She loved it. Every month she would visit the same colonies. New Eden was her favorite. The people there grew amazing fruits in their glass houses. The children would always wave at her ship when she landed. Terra Verde had the best coffee in this part of space. The farmers there were always happy to see her because she brought them tools they needed. Millbrook Station was smaller, but the miners there worked hard to dig up rare metals that Earth needed. These colonies were peaceful places. People worked together. Families lived good lives. Children went to school and played in safe streets. The adults talked about normal things like weather, crops, and plans for the future. Nobody talked about war or fighting. Why would they? Humans had been living in peace for over 60 years. Sarah's crew was small but good at their jobs. Tom was her pilot. He could fly through any asteroid field without hitting anything. Maria worked on the engines and could fix anything that broke. Jack handled all the computer systems and kept track of where they needed to go. They were like family to Sarah. On this particular day, they were flying between colonies when Jack picked up something strange on his computers. "Captain," he said, looking worried, "I'm getting some weird signals from the direction of New Eden." Sarah walked over to look at his screen. "What kind of signals?" "I don't know. They're not the usual radio messages. They're different, stronger, and there are a lot of ships moving toward New Eden." Tom looked back from his pilot seat. "Should we go check it out?" Sarah thought for a moment. The colonies sometimes had visits from traders or government ships. But something felt wrong about this. "Yes, but let's be careful. Don't get too close." As they flew toward New Eden, Sarah remembered what life was like for humans in space. Most aliens in the galaxy thought humans were soft and weak. Humans preferred to talk instead of fight. They made deals instead of taking things by force. They built schools and farms on their colonies instead of military bases. The Galactic Council, which was like a government for all the different alien species, saw humans as useful but not important. Humans grew good food and found valuable metals, but they were not seen as a threat to anyone. Most aliens thought this was because humans could not fight well. Sarah knew this was not exactly true, but she did not think about it much. Her grandfather had told her stories about old wars on Earth, but that was long ago. Now humans lived in peace. They had chosen to be peaceful. It was better this way. The Zephyrian Empire controlled a large part of this area of space. They were tall, strong aliens with gray skin and red eyes. They had powerful ships and weapons. They had conquered many other alien species over the centuries. The Zephyrians thought they owned this entire section of the galaxy. Recently, some Zephyrians had complained about humans moving into their space. But humans had been building colonies here for 30 years with permission from the Galactic Council. The area was supposed to be open to all species. Sarah had heard rumors that some Zephyrians were angry about this, but she thought it was just talk. As they got closer to New Eden, Jack's computers started picking up more signals. "Captain, there are definitely alien ships near the colony. Big ones. They're not responding to our radio calls." Sarah felt her stomach get tight with worry. "Are they Zephyrian ships?" "I think so. The computer says they match Zephyrian designs. But why would so many military ships be at New Eden? The colonists there don't have anything the Zephyrians would want." Through the window, Sarah could see lights in the distance. As they got closer, the lights got brighter and more numerous. Then Tom said something that made Sarah's blood run cold. "Those aren't ship lights. That's weapons fire." Sarah grabbed the radio microphone. "New Eden Colony, this is the Harmony's Dream. Please respond. What is your status?" Static came back. Then a voice filled with panic and fear. "Harmony's Dream, stay away. We're under attack. They came without warning. They're bombing everything. The defense stations are gone. We need help." "Who's attacking you?" Sarah asked, but she already knew the answer. "Zephyrians. Dozens of ships. They're not accepting surrender. They're killing everyone, even the children." "Sarah, don't come here. Tell Earth what happened. Tell them we tried to—" The radio went silent. Sarah stared at the microphone in her hand. She could not believe what she had just heard. The Zephyrians were attacking a peaceful colony. They were killing families. They were murdering children. "Captain," Tom said quietly, What do we do? Sarah looked at her crew. They all looked scared and confused. None of them had ever seen real war before. None of them knew what to do when faced with such violence. We can't fight those ships, Maria said. Our ship has no weapons. We'd just get killed too. Sarah knew Maria was right. The Harmony's dream was built to carry cargo, not to fight. If they went toward New Eden, the Zephyrians would destroy them easily. But she could not just fly away and pretend this was not happening. Jack, record everything our sensors are picking up, she ordered. Every ship, every weapon signature, everything. People need to know what happened here. Already doing it, Captain. Sarah made the hardest decision of her life. Tom, plot a course away from New Eden. We need to survive so we can tell others about this. As they flew away, Sarah watched the lights of weapons fire in the distance. She knew that each flash meant more people were dying. Families she had known for years were being murdered. Children who had waved at her ship were being killed by aliens who saw humans as nothing more than pests to be removed. The radio crackled again. This time it was a different voice from New Eden. Anyone out there, this is Mayor Davidson. If you can hear this, tell our families on Earth that we love them. Tell them we fought as hard as we could. Tell them to remember us. Tell them to make the Zephyrians pay for what they've done here today. Then that voice was gone too. Hours later, when they were safely away, Jack reported what his computers had recorded. 3 Zephyrian battle fleets attacked 3 different human colonies at the same time. New Eden, Terra Verde, and Millbrook Station. They destroyed everything. No survivors detected. Sarah closed her eyes. 50,000 people lived in those colonies. 50,000 men, women, and children who had been living peaceful lives just hours ago. Now they were all dead. Send a message to Earth, she told Jack. Tell them what happened. Tell them the Zephyrians have declared war on humanity by attacking our colonies without warning. As Jack prepared the message, Sarah thought about what would happen next. The Zephyrians probably expected the remaining human colonies to surrender in fear. They probably thought humans would beg for mercy and agree to leave Zephyrian space. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Sarah had heard the old stories from her grandfather. She remembered what he had told her about human history, about what humans were capable of when they were truly angry, about what happened to those who hurt human families. The Zephyrians had just awakened something that had been sleeping for 60 years. They were about to learn why humanity's ancestors had conquered their entire planet with nothing but stone tools and determination. They were about to learn what humans really were, underneath all that civilization. The message from the Harmony's dream reached Earth 3 days later. Sarah Chen sat in a small room at Luna Base, the big space station near Earth's moon. She had told her story a dozen times to different officials, but each time felt like opening a fresh wound. Admiral Marcus Kane stood across from her. He was an older man with gray hair and serious eyes. His family had been military for generations, back when Earth still had wars between countries. Now he worked for the Human Defense Council, a group that most people forgot even existed. Tell me again about the final transmissions, Kane said quietly. Sarah's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Mayor Davidson said to tell their families they loved them. He said to make the Zephyrians pay for what they did. Then the signal stopped. Kane nodded. Behind him on the wall was a map showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. 3 red marks showed where New Eden, Terra Verde, and Millbrook Station used to be. 50,000 people gone in a single day. The Zephyrians have sent a message to the Galactic Council, Kane said. They claim our colonies were built illegally in their territory. They say they had the right to remove us. Sarah felt anger rise in her chest. Those colonies were approved by the Council 30 years ago. Families lived there. Children were born there. How can they call that illegal? They can't, Kane replied. But they think they can get away with it because they believe humans are weak. In another part of Luna Base, Dr. Elena Vasquez was reading through files that had been locked away for decades. She was humanity's top expert on alien species, but today she was studying her own people's history. The files contained information about human wars from centuries past. Wars that most people preferred to forget. She read about ancient battles where humans fought with spears and swords. She read about more recent wars with guns and bombs. She read about the last great war on Earth, which ended 60 years ago when humans finally decided that peace was better than constant fighting. But the files also contained other information. They showed how human military leaders thought differently from alien commanders. They showed how humans fought when they were truly desperate. They showed what happened to enemies who attacked human families. Dr. Vasquez picked up her phone and called Admiral Kane. "Marcus, you need to see these files." "What kind of files?" "Military analysis reports from the early space program. Our first explorers studied every alien species they met. They wrote detailed reports about how each species fights wars. And every alien species in the galaxy evolved as either a predator or prey animal. The predator species, like the Zephyrians, fight for territory and dominance. The prey species fight to escape or hide. But humans are different." Kane was quiet for a moment. "Different how?" "Humans are persistence hunters. On Earth, our ancestors didn't have claws or fangs or natural armor. But they had something else. They never gave up. They would chase their prey for days, weeks, until the animal was too tired to run anymore. Then they would kill it. What does that have to do with space war? Everything. Other species fight until one side wins or loses. Humans fight until the threat is completely eliminated. The Zephyrians just declared war on a species that doesn't know how to quit." Across the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire was celebrating their easy victory. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at reports from the 3 attacks. Everything had gone perfectly. The human colonies had been destroyed quickly with minimal Zephyrian losses. "The humans will surrender within days," he told his officers. "They are a weak species that values peace above strength. When they see what happened to these colonies, they will beg for mercy." His communications officer looked up from his station. "Sir, we're receiving messages from other human colonies. Should I translate them?" "Yes, I want to hear them plead for their lives." But the messages were not pleas for mercy. They were evacuation notices. Human colonies throughout the sector were moving their civilian populations to safer areas. They were preparing for war. Vextar laughed. "They think they can fight us with what? Cargo ships and farming equipment." On Earth, the Human Defense Council met in emergency session. The meeting room had not been used for military planning in decades. Dust covered some of the chairs. But now it was full of grim-faced officials who had been awakened to a new reality. Admiral Kane stood at the front of the room. Behind him was a large screen showing the locations of human colonies, trade routes, and known Zephyrian military bases. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kane began, 3 days ago, the Zephyrian Empire committed an act of genocide against human civilians. 50,000 men, women, and children were murdered without warning, without provocation, and without mercy. The room was completely silent. The Zephyrians believe this attack will force us to surrender. They believe humans are too weak and peaceful to fight back. They are about to learn how wrong they are. Kane pressed a button on his remote control. The screen changed to show Earth shipyards, which had been building civilian vessels for decades. These facilities will be converted to military production immediately. Every cargo ship in human space will be evaluated for possible military use. Another button press showed a map of human trade networks. Our merchant marine knows every shipping lane, every asteroid field, every hidden route in this sector. That knowledge will now serve a different purpose. Dr. Vasquez stood up. "Admiral, what about the Galactic Council? Will they help us?" Kane's expression was cold. "The Council will debate and discuss while more humans die. We cannot wait for them. We will handle this ourselves." What are you saying?" "I'm saying that for 60 years humanity has chosen to be civilized. We chose to build instead of destroy. We chose to create instead of conquer. We chose to live in peace with our neighbors." Kane paused. "But choice goes both ways. If the Zephyrians want to see what humans were like before we chose civilization, we can show them." A younger official raised her hand. "Sir, with respect, can we really fight the Zephyrian Empire? They have superior technology and more ships." Kane smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Technology is not everything. The Zephyrians fight for conquest and glory. They have rules about honor in battle. They take prisoners. They negotiate surrenders. They fight wars the way most civilized species fight wars. And how do humans fight? Humans fight to win, completely, permanently. When our ancestors fought with stone tools against animals 10 times their size, they did not fight fair. They used every advantage they could find. They never stopped until the threat was gone forever." Kane clicked his remote again. The screen showed a timeline of human military history. Ancient battles, medieval wars, industrial conflicts, and finally the space age. Every human alive today is descended from the most successful predators in Earth's history. For 60 years, we have kept that part of ourselves locked away. We chose to be farmers and traders and teachers instead of warriors. But the Zephyrians have forced us to remember what we really are. The room was still silent, but now it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of people realizing that everything was about to change. The Zephyrians wanted to see what happens when you attack human colonies, Kane continued. They wanted to know what humans do when our families are threatened. They're about to find out. He turned off the screen and looked directly at the assembled officials. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to war. Not a civilized war with rules and negotiations. Not a war for territory or resources. We are going to show the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate the human race. Kane's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but everyone heard every word. The Zephyrians think they awakened a sleeping giant. They're wrong. They awakened something much worse than that. They awakened the beast that humanity used to be before we learned to be human. Outside the meeting room, Captain Sarah Chen watched Earth through a large window. Ships were already moving in the darkness of space, heading to secret locations. The transformation had begun. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had conquered their entire planet, long before they reached the stars. 2 weeks after the attacks, the transformation of human space began in earnest. On the agricultural world of Harvest Moon, farmers drove their tractors to hidden underground facilities that most people did not know existed. These facilities had been built decades ago, disguised as storage areas for grain and equipment. When the hidden doors opened, they revealed something that would have shocked the Galactic Council. Massive manufacturing plants stretched deep into the planet's core. Assembly lines that had been shut down for 60 years hummed back to life. Workers who had spent their lives growing crops now found themselves building weapons of war. Captain Sarah Chen walked through one of these facilities with Admiral Kane. The noise was incredible. Machines that had been silent for generations now worked around the clock. The air smelled of metal and electricity. How long have these been here? Sarah asked, shouting over the noise. Since the early colonial period, Kane replied. Our ancestors were not stupid. They knew that peace only lasts as long as everyone wants peace. They built these facilities just in case someone decided to break the peace. They stopped in front of a massive assembly line where cargo ships were being modified for war. Civilian transport vessels went in one end looking like harmless merchant ships. They came out the other end looking like something entirely different. The hulls were always designed to be modular, Kane explained. A cargo bay can be converted to hold missile launchers in about 6 hours. Life support systems designed for passenger comfort can be modified to support larger crews. Navigation computers built for trade routes can be reprogrammed for military targeting. Sarah watched as workers installed weapon systems into a ship she recognized. It had been a peaceful transport just like her own vessel. Now it looked like it could destroy a small space station. What about the crews? She asked. Most merchant ship captains have never fought in a war, Kane smiled grimly. That's where you're wrong. Every human who has ever worked in space has been through basic military training. It was hidden in their regular education, disguised as emergency procedures and safety protocols. They all know how to fight. They just haven't needed to until now. On another world called New Prosperity, similar changes were happening. The planet's mining operations had always seemed perfectly normal to outside observers. Giant machines dug valuable metals from the ground while human workers operated the equipment in what appeared to be standard industrial operations. But the mining lasers were now being removed from their industrial housings and mounted on ship hulls. The explosives used for mining were being refined into military-grade weapons. The ore processing facilities were being converted to manufacture armor plating and hull reinforcement. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the command center, watching displays that showed human activity throughout the galaxy. Every human world was undergoing the same transformation. Agricultural colonies were revealing hidden shipyards. Research stations were producing military intelligence. Even the smallest outposts were contributing to the war effort. It's remarkable, she said to her assistant. The entire human civilian infrastructure was designed from the beginning to support a military campaign if necessary. But why? The assistant asked. If our leaders wanted peace, why did they prepare for war? Dr. Vasquez pulled up a historical file on her computer. It showed the last great war on Earth, which had ended 60 years ago with the Treaty of Unity. The document was signed by every nation on Earth, promising eternal peace among humans. Read the final clause of the treaty, she said, pointing to the screen. The assistant read aloud. We, the peoples of Earth, Commit to eternal peace among ourselves and with all sentient beings who wish to live in peace. However, we also commit to the complete destruction of any force that threatens the existence of humanity or human civilization. Our ancestors were not pacifists, Dr. Vasquez explained. They were realists. They chose peace because they knew the cost of war. But they also knew that sometimes war chooses you whether you want it or not. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian Empire was beginning to notice unusual activity in human space. Commander Vextar studied intelligence reports from his spies throughout the sector. Something was happening, but he could not figure out what. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "human cargo traffic has increased by 400% in the past 2 weeks. Ships that normally carry food and supplies are now carrying unknown cargo to unknown destinations. Are they evacuating their remaining colonies?" "We don't think so, sir. The traffic patterns don't match evacuation procedures. It looks more like mobilization." Vextar laughed. "Mobilization of what? Farmers and merchants? Even if humans wanted to fight us, they have no military. They've been peaceful for decades, yes, sir. But our analysts are puzzled by some of the ship modifications they're detecting. Civilian vessels are being altered in ways that don't make sense for normal trade operations." "Show me." The intelligence officer brought up images captured by Zephyrian spy satellites. They showed human ships that looked different from before. They were still recognizably civilian vessels, but something about their shapes had changed. "The cargo bays have been modified," the officer explained. "The hull configurations have been altered. The power systems have been upgraded. We're not sure why." Vextar studied the images for a long time. Finally, he shook his head. "Humans are probably just preparing to abandon this sector of space. They know they cannot fight us, so they're preparing to run away to the inner systems where we won't follow them." But he was wrong. The humans were not preparing to run away. They were preparing to hunt. On Luna Base, Admiral Kane met with his senior staff. The room was full of people who had been civilian administrators just weeks ago, but were now military commanders. The transformation of human society was happening at every level. "Status report," Kane ordered. Colonel Martinez, who had been running agricultural logistics, now managed military supply lines. "Food production has been centralized and streamlined. We can support extended military operations for at least 2 years without rationing." General Park, formerly in charge of civilian transportation, now commanded the human fleet. "Ship conversions are ahead of schedule. We'll have 300 combat-capable vessels within 6 weeks. Dr. Vasquez provided intelligence analysis. Zephyrian fleet movements suggest they're not taking our preparations seriously. They still think we're preparing to evacuate." "Good," Kane said. "Let them think that. The longer they underestimate us, the more complete our preparation can be." Captain Sarah Chen, who now wore the uniform of a military officer, spoke up. "Admiral, what about the other colonies? The Zephyrians might attack them while we're preparing." Kane's expression was cold. "The remaining colonies have been evacuated or fortified. We're not going to lose any more civilians to Zephyrian surprise attacks. From now on, when they want to kill humans, they'll have to fight soldiers. What's our overall strategy?" Kane stood up and activated a large display showing the entire sector. Red markers showed Zephyrian military bases, supply routes, and fleet positions. Blue markers showed human assets, both known and hidden. "The Zephyrians fight like most military species," Kane explained. "They mass their forces, attack objectives, and try to force surrender through superior firepower. It's a proven strategy that has worked for them for centuries. And how do we counter that? We don't counter it. We ignore it completely." Kane's voice was steady and frightening. "Humans don't fight for territory or military objectives. When we fight to eliminate the threat permanently. The Zephyrians wanted to see what happens when you attack human families. We're going to show them." The display changed to show attack vectors and timing sequences. Phase 1 begins in 3 weeks. We will not attack their military bases. We will not try to capture their territory. We will not offer them chances to surrender. What will we do? Kane looked around the room at faces that had once belonged to peaceful civilians. Now they were the faces of people who had remembered what their species was capable of. We will hunt them. Systematically. Completely. We will make sure that no Zephyrian military force ever threatens a human colony again. He pressed another button. The display showed the location of every Zephyrian outpost, every supply depot, every communication relay in their empire. Our ancestors conquered Earth with stone tools and determination. They hunted animals that were bigger, stronger, and better armed than they were. But humans always won in the end because humans never gave up. Kane turned off the display and looked directly at his staff. 3. Zephyrians are about to learn what our ancestors learned 60,000 years ago. It doesn't matter how strong you are or how good your weapons are. If humans decide you're a threat that needs to be eliminated, you will be eliminated. The room was quiet except for the sound of air circulation systems and the distant hum of ships preparing for war. They wanted to wake the beast. Kane continued. Now they get to face it. Outside Luna Base, human ships moved through space like shadows, heading to positions throughout the galaxy. The hunt was about to begin. The first Zephyrian outpost disappeared on a Tuesday. Outpost Kalar 7 was a small supply station on the edge of Zephyrian territory. It had a crew of 200 soldiers and served as a refueling point for patrol ships. The station commander, Major Thys, was drinking his morning stimulant when his communications officer made a report that would haunt the Zephyrian Empire. "Sir, we've lost contact with the overnight shift." "What do you mean, lost contact?" "The guards who were supposed to check in every hour stopped responding 3 hours ago. The security cameras in their sectors show nothing but empty corridors." Major Thys was not particularly worried. Equipment failures happened all the time on remote outposts. Send a maintenance team to check the communication systems in those areas. 20 minutes later, the maintenance team failed to report back. An hour after that, Major Thys realized that half his station had gone completely silent. No alarms, no distress calls, no signs of fighting. His soldiers were simply vanishing. "Send a security team to investigate," he ordered. The security team found empty corridors and vacant rooms. Personal belongings were still in place. Food was still warm in the dining areas. But there were no people anywhere. That was when Major Thys discovered something that made his blood turn cold. The security team's cameras showed glimpses of movement in the shadows. Figures in dark armor moving through ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels. Figures that moved with deadly purpose and complete silence. Humans. Major Thys tried to send a distress signal, but discovered that his communication systems had been quietly disabled hours ago. He tried to activate the station's defensive weapons, but found that key components had been removed while his crew wasn't looking. The humans had been inside his station for hours, studying it, learning it, and systematically taking it apart piece by piece. When the attack finally came, it was over in minutes. The remaining Zephyrian soldiers found themselves facing opponents who knew the station better than they did. Humans emerged from every shadow, every hiding place, every forgotten maintenance shaft. But these were not the peaceful traitors the Zephyrians expected to fight. These were soldiers who moved like predators, who used the station's own systems against its defenders, and who fought with a cold efficiency that terrified the proud warrior race. Major Thys survived long enough to see human soldiers securing his command center. The human leader removed her helmet, revealing the face of Captain Sarah Chen. "You're going to send a message to your commanders," she told him calmly. "I will never." Sarah held up a small device. On its screen, Major Thys could see images from throughout the station. Human soldiers were placing explosive charges on critical systems, fuel supplies, and structural supports. "You can cooperate and your crew will have time to evacuate," Sarah said. "Or you can refuse and this station will be destroyed with everyone still inside." "Your choice." Major Thys stared at her. This was not how civilized species conducted warfare. There were rules, protocols, and standards of military honor that both sides were supposed to follow. "What message do you want me to send?" "Tell them that humans have come for the Zephyrian Empire. Tell them that we remember what happened to our colonies. Tell them that this is just the beginning." 2 hours later, the evacuation was complete and Outpost Kalar 7 ceased to exist. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. But the message Major Thys sent before evacuating was not the only information reaching Zephyrian Command. Military intelligence throughout their empire began reporting similar incidents. Supply depots were being raided and destroyed. Communication relays were going offline. Patrol ships were disappearing without sending distress calls. Commander Vextar studied the reports with growing concern. The attack showed a pattern that he did not understand. The humans were not trying to capture territory or defeat Zephyrian military units in direct combat. Instead, they were systematically destroying the infrastructure that kept the Zephyrian military operating. "It's like they're trying to strangle us," his intelligence officer observed. "They're cutting our supply lines, destroying our communication networks, and making it impossible for our forces to coordinate." "But why?" Vextar demanded. "What do they gain from this? They're not taking our territory. They're not demanding our surrender. What do they want?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A Zephyrian patrol ship that had been captured intact was returned to them with a single human aboard. The human was not a prisoner. He was a messenger. Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez walked calmly into Vextar's command center wearing his human military uniform. Zephyrian soldiers surrounded him with weapons drawn, but he showed no fear. "I have a message from Admiral Kane," Rodriguez announced. "You're in no position to make demands." "Human," Vextar snarled. Rodriguez smiled coldly. "I'm not making demands. I'm delivering information. Your empire attacked 3 human colonies without warning. You killed 50,000 civilians, including children. Now you're going to learn what happens when you try to exterminate the human race. We will crush your pathetic fleet and—" "You still don't understand," Rodriguez interrupted. "This isn't about fleets or territory or military conquest. This is about elimination. You declared war on human civilization. We accepted." He activated a small holographic projector that showed a map of the entire Zephyrian Empire. Red markers appeared throughout their territory, marking every military installation, supply depot, and strategic resource. "In the past month, we have destroyed 67 of your supply stations, 32 communication relays, and 48 patrol vessels. Your forces in the outer sectors are already running low on fuel and ammunition." Vextar stared at the display. The red markers showed a level of human penetration into Zephyrian space that should have been impossible. "How?" he whispered. "You've been fighting other species for centuries," Rodriguez explained. "You learned to fight civilized wars with rules and honor and military objectives. But humans are not other species. We learned to fight by hunting animals that were bigger and stronger than us. We learned to be patient, to study our prey, and to never give up until the threat was completely eliminated." The holographic display changed to show human ship movements throughout Zephyrian space. The patterns looked random at first, but then Vextar began to see the design. Human forces were not moving to attack military targets. They were positioning themselves to cut off every escape route, every supply line, every possible retreat. "You're surrounding us," Vextar realized. "We're hunting you," Rodriguez corrected. "For the past month, human forces have been learning your patrol routes, mapping your defensive positions, and identifying every weakness in your empire. We know where every one of your ships is located. We know how much fuel and ammunition you have left. We know which of your commanders are competent and which are not. This is impossible. Our intelligence services would have detected. Your intelligence services have been compromised since the 2nd week of the war. Every report you've received, every order you've sent, every strategic decision you've made has been monitored by human agents." Rodriguez deactivated the hologram and looked directly at Vextar. "Admiral Kane wants you to understand something very important. When your forces attacked our colonies, you made a choice. You chose to see what humans are capable of when our families are threatened. Now you know. What do you want? Territory? Resources? What are your demands?" Rodriguez shook his head. "You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiation. This is an extermination. You wanted to eliminate human presence in this sector. Now we're going to eliminate Zephyrian military presence in this galaxy. That's impossible. We have millions of soldiers, thousands of ships." "You had thousands of ships," Rodriguez corrected. "Check your current fleet status." Vextar's communications officer was frantically checking reports from throughout the Empire. His face grew pale as he read the updates. "Sir, we're receiving damage reports from across all sectors. Multiple supply bases have been destroyed. Our fuel reserves are down to 30% of normal levels. Communication with 17 outer colonies has been lost completely." Rodriguez walked toward the exit of the command center. Zephyrian soldiers raised their weapons, but he continued walking as if they were not there. "The human fleet will arrive at your home system in 72 hours, he said without turning around. "You can spend that time preparing for a glorious battle if you want. But it won't matter. This war ended the moment you decided to attack our colonies." He paused at the doorway and looked back at Vextar. "Your empire has existed for 1,000 years. You've conquered dozens of species and dominated this entire region of space, but you made one mistake. You attacked a species that knows how to hunt. After Rodriguez left, the command center was silent except for the continuing stream of damage reports coming in from throughout Zephyrian space. Vextar finally understood what was happening to his empire. The humans had not been preparing to fight a war. They had been preparing to eliminate a threat, completely, permanently, without mercy or quarter. The proud warrior race that had dominated the galaxy for centuries was about to learn what it felt like to be prey. The final battle for the Zephyrian home system began exactly 72 hours after Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez delivered his message. But it was not the kind of battle that Commander Vextar had expected. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the system not as a massive formation of warships, but as hundreds of individual vessels that moved with deadly purpose. They did not announce their arrival with dramatic broadcasts or demands for surrender. They simply began the systematic destruction of everything that kept Zephyrian civilization functioning. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the redesigned cargo vessel that had once been called Peaceful Trader. Now it was equipped with weapons that could crack asteroids and sensors that could track a single ship across an entire star system. "Status report," Kane ordered. Captain Chen, now commanding her own battle group, appeared on the communication screen. "Perimeter secured, Admiral. All escape routes have been blocked. No Zephyrian ships are leaving this system. Orbital defenses neutralized. We use their own maintenance schedules against them. My teams have been inside their defense platforms for weeks waiting for this moment." Kane nodded. The human approach to warfare was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Other species built bigger weapons, stronger shields, and faster ships. Humans simply learned everything about their enemies and then used that knowledge to turn the enemy's strengths into weaknesses. On the surface of the Zephyrian homeworld, billions of civilians watched their orbital defense network explode in silent flashes of light. The mighty weapons platforms that had protected their world for centuries were being destroyed by enemies they could barely see. In the capital city, the Zephyrian High Command gathered in their emergency bunker. Emperor Krathel, who had ruled the Empire for 50 years, stared at reports that seemed impossible to believe. "How can a species that has no military experience defeat our greatest fleets?" he demanded. General Corax, his senior military advisor, looked defeated. "Your Majesty, we made a fundamental error in our assessment of human capabilities. We assumed that because they chose peace, they were incapable of war. And now? Now we know that human peace was not weakness. It was restraint. We forced them to remove that restraint." On his screen, the Emperor could see the human fleet in action. Their ships moved with perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly where the others would be. They did not fight like a military force trying to win battles. They fought like a pack of predators eliminating a threat to their territory. "What do they want?" the Emperor asked. "Money? Territory? We can negotiate." "Your Majesty," General Corax interrupted. "I don't think they want anything from us. I think they want us gone." The truth of those words became clear as the human attack continued. Zephyrian military bases were not captured. They were obliterated. Supply ships were not boarded. They were destroyed. Communication networks were not disrupted. They were completely eliminated. Admiral Kane received a transmission from the planetary surface. It was Emperor Krathel himself offering surrender. "Human Commander," the Emperor's voice was strained. "I formally offer the surrender of the Zephyrian Empire. We will withdraw from all disputed territories and pay compensation for the damage we have caused." Kane's response was broadcast not just to the Emperor, but to every communication device in the Zephyrian system. "Emperor Krathel, your forces attacked 3 human colonies without warning. You murdered 50,000 civilians, including children. You declared war on human civilization by choosing genocide over diplomacy." Kane paused, letting his words sink in throughout the Zephyrian homeworld. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of when our families are threatened. This is what we are capable of. Your military forces will be completely destroyed. Your ability to wage war will be permanently eliminated. Your empire, as it has existed, is over. But the civilians will be relocated to a single world where they will be supervised to ensure they never again pose a threat to human colonies or any other peaceful species. The Zephyrian Empire chose to become a predator species. Now you will learn what it means to be prey." The Emperor's transmission cut off, but Kane was not finished. He activated a galaxy-wide broadcast that would reach every species in known space. To all civilizations of the galaxy, this is Admiral Marcus Kane of the Human Defense Force. For 60 years, humanity has chosen to live in peace with our neighbors. We have built schools instead of fortresses, grown food instead of manufacturing weapons, and sought friendship instead of conquest. Throughout the galaxy, alien leaders stopped their daily business to listen to the human admiral's words. The Zephyrian Empire mistook our civilization for weakness. They attacked our colonies, murdered our families, and attempted to eliminate human presence from this sector of space. Today you can see the result of their choice. On screens throughout known space, images showed the systematic destruction of Zephyrian military power. Their once mighty fleets were being eliminated with surgical precision. Their proud empire was being dismantled piece by piece. Let this serve as a lesson to any species that might consider following the Zephyrian example, Kane continued. Humanity remains committed to peace, trade, and friendship with all species that share those values. But we are also committed to the complete elimination of any threat to human civilization. Kane's voice became colder, more terrifying. Our ancestors conquered their entire world with stone tools and determination. They survived ice ages, plagues, and predators that should have destroyed them. They did this because when humans decide that something is a threat, we do not stop until that threat no longer exists. The broadcast showed human ships throughout Zephyrian space, methodically destroying every military installation, every weapon factory, and every strategic resource that could support future aggression. We chose to be civilized. That choice remains ours to make. 3 months later, the work was complete. The Zephyrian Empire, which had dominated this region of space for 1,000 years, no longer existed as a military power. Their surviving population had been relocated to Krath Prime, a single world that was now under permanent human supervision. Captain Sarah, Chen walked through the rebuilt colony of New Eden. The memorial wall contained the names of all 50,000 people who had died in the Zephyrian attacks. Families came here to remember their loved ones and to understand why the galaxy had changed so dramatically. Children played in the streets again. But now they played under the protection of the most feared military force in known space. Human colonies throughout the galaxy had been rebuilt stronger than before, and new ones were being established with full knowledge that they would be defended absolutely. Admiral Kane stood in his office on Luna Base, looking at reports from across human space. The transformation was complete. Humanity had remembered what it was capable of when truly threatened, and that knowledge had changed. Everything. Dr. Elena Vasquez knocked on his door and entered carrying a datapad full of diplomatic communications. The other species are asking if we're planning to expand our territory, she reported. Some of them are worried that we might decide their threats too. Kane considered this. What do you tell them? I tell them the truth. Humans are not interested in conquest or empire. We just want to live in peace and raise our families without worrying about someone trying to exterminate us. And if they don't believe that? Dr. Vasquez smiled. I show them what happened to the Zephyrians. Usually that ends the conversation. Kane walked to his window and looked out at Earth. The planet looked peaceful and beautiful, just as it had before the war. But now everyone in the galaxy knew what lay beneath that peaceful appearance. The Zephyrians thought they were attacking weak farmers and traders, Kane said quietly. They never bothered to study human history. They never asked why a species capable of interstellar travel chose diplomacy over conquest. And now they know. Now everyone knows. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our numbers. It was our choice to be civilized. And choices can always be unmade. Dr. Vasquez left Kane alone with his thoughts. Outside his window, ships moved through space carrying trade goods, scientific equipment, and cultural exchanges with alien species. Life had returned to normal, but every alien in the galaxy now understood something that the Zephyrians had learned too late. Behind humanity's diplomatic smile and preference for peace lay something far older and more dangerous. The calculated gaze of apex predators who had turned warfare into an art form long before they reached the stars. The galaxy had learned to respect human colonies, human trade routes, and human diplomatic requests, not because humans demanded respect, but because everyone now knew what happened to those who threatened human families. The children of New Eden played in streets that were safe not because the galaxy had become more peaceful, but because every potential aggressor knew that attacking humans meant facing the full wrath of a species that had conquered their entire world with nothing but determination and the refusal to give up. Humanity had chosen to be civilized, but they had also proven that choice came with a price for anyone foolish enough to test it. The beasts were awake now, and the galaxy would never be the same.